All right. Welcome, David Harley. This is the Setsi Impact Investing Research Initiative interview. So please introduce yourself, your company, your title, and your origin story.
Hello, thank you, Sarah, and thanks for your time today. My name is David Harley. I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa. I grew up in Accra, spent the first half of my life here before moving to Canada to do my undergrad, and I've been in Canada since. I am CEO of Third Way Capital, which is a venture holding company. We invest in scale-ready SMEs in sub-Saharan Africa. We're currently in Ghana and shortly in South Africa and Kenya. We invest across different sectors. We invest really are there to back leadership, excellence in leadership and values aligned leadership that really see the future of Africa being the home of the best run companies that are looking at making sure that everyone along the value chain is taken care of, and that looking to run their businesses in a way that all stakeholders flourish. And so that's us in a nutshell. We've been around for about 3 years, and the future looks bright.
Nice, thank you. So how do you define impact investing?
So impact investing is any investing that you do with a very clear, focused outcome in mind, outside of obviously the financial outcome that is also important to make sure it's sustainable. And so it could be to back companies that are doing work in the green energy space. It could be to back companies that are chasing very specific gender equality goals, for instance. And what you do is you set out your goals and you monitor them. You make sure that you continue to adjust your operations accordingly to make sure that you're moving the direction of meeting those goals. And so in our instance, the impact we're chasing is economic, primarily, in a part of the world that is in desperate need of that sort of economic uplift, that catalytic activity in their financial markets.
Fantastic. So how do you define impact measurement in the impact investing ecosystem?
Impact measurement, so it can be qualitative and it can be quantitative. Usually you will have a combination of both, and it's akin to what you would do if you're looking at the financial side of the business. Is you would set out some goals around KPIs, around your profit, around your revenues, etc., and you would track them quarter by quarter. Similarly, we would invest in a company and we would say, for instance, if it's a farm, we want to understand what's the effect of the farming activities on the quality of the water. And so we'd set out some goal for what's high quality water, and we'd say, we want to get here. How do we do that? What process do we need to put in place? What spend do we need to make? And then over the year, we would track that to make sure either that we are continuing to maintain the water quality, or that if we're not, that we're tracking towards improving it, and at least we're going the direction of that best in class water quality. And that's just one type of metric. There are other kinds of metrics, as I say, are more qualitative and can be harder to kind of like get your arms around.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So what promising models or communities of practice do you think need amplification?
Okay. So for us, we run a model that's, a fair distance away from what's been the traditional model, particularly in the West, where it's often, if you're in the private, if you're investing in private companies, you're often doing, using a private equity model, which usually a fund, which comes with limited partners and general partners who run the fund. It's a model that works in the West and that works in mature markets for moving capital to places that it's needed. But here in our venture in most of the global South, it's struggling because there's kind of a mismatch between what it does and what we need it to do. What we need is patient capital. We need capital that allows companies the time to build holistically, the time to build with a multi-stakeholder lens here, and to create a new environment and ecosystem. It's when you're developing markets, you really need to have a patient approach, because you're not just looking for alpha. You're not looking to just outperform other players in the market that's already existing. You're looking to actually create something that doesn't actually exist. So we call it, building the tracks as well as the train. And obviously, if you're building infrastructure within markets, it just takes more time. And PE fund models that exist now, in a lot of cases, don't actually give you the time to do that. Now, PE models can work at mid-cap or large-cap companies in Africa for sure, but I wouldn't consider that impact investing. These are companies that are doing well already. They're blue chip companies that occupy a space in a mature market and just need some funding. And so in terms of the ability to move the needle, you're not going to get as much bang for buck in terms of impact as you will in the space where we work, where it's SMEs that really have nowhere else to go for this capital.
Right. Thank you. So in terms of inclusion, diversity, equity, and access within the impact investing ecosystem, do you see a lack of inclusion in Canada or globally?
So if you go to your average impact sort of association meeting, what you will actually find that it's certainly on the gender side, it's skewed quite heavily towards women, which is interesting. I believe my observation is that there are a lot of women in the impact space. There are a lot of men that are interested in the space and are moving their careers in that direction. I'm just not sure that there are enough women that have decision-making power in that space. Who's actually running these organizations? You still seem to be, closer to mainstream than what you'd expect to see. If you're seeing 80% of women at impact conferences and whatnot, you'd expect to see 80% of women running these companies just by extension. But if that number is down near 30%, you have to kind of scratch your head. Right. And I suppose a lot of it is because when you're starting, an impact company, a lot of it is where are you going to get the capital from? And those relationships are still often legacy relationships held by men who had prior careers in finance, who've decided that they now want to go and do good in the world. Right. And so, at the birth of the impact industry, you still got men kind of leading these companies. Hopefully, the second wave of impact companies, now that you have these, women that are building their careers in this direction, you're going to have those touch points where a woman that then now leaves an impact firm and says, I want to go and do my own thing, now has those relationships and can actually run a company herself. But time will tell. In terms of other aspects of inclusion, across racial lines, I would say, to be honest, there are similar issues there. I mean, there is a sense that there's a bit more that you have to prove out if you are someone of my demography trying to raise capital. There's just a bit more climbing that you have to do. Again, part of it is due to legacy relationships, but obviously there's a sense that even a Canadian-led or American-led fund that's acting in an African country is less risky than if the same fund is led by Black Africans, which actually makes no sense because who knows the ecosystem better than Africans who've actually lived and worked in those countries. The risk is actually on not understanding the dynamics of those countries. So yeah, there's work to do for sure, because really fundamentally, the source of the money hasn't really changed. Where we're starting to see flex is that the DFIs are now stumping up some cash, development finance institutions, and they're more open to finding diverse leaders who are actually building bespoke vehicles for the needs of their countries. So that's where I would say there's you're going to find some difference from mainstream finance is there.
Right, absolutely. So at Setsi, we're working diligently on an initiative called the AIM, the African Impact Investment Movement. Has Third Way Capital made any investments or partnerships in the Global South or Africa specifically?
Yes, we have a couple so far, and we have a third pending. Hopefully, it will be done by the end of the quarter.
Thank you for that. Do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I'm just I love the work you do. It's going to take all of us working from our different vantage points, working through our different relationships to make the change that we're all looking for happen. I see more and more, folks outside of, if you like, our demography starting to roll up their sleeves and get involved, but we need more of that as well. So, it's important to keep those connections, keep growing those connections. And that's really where our strength is that the diaspora is so big, and I'm not convinced we utilize it as well as we can. And so the more, Victor does a really good job at this, by the way, but the more we have people that are bringing in different actors, the quicker we'll make progress.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time today.